Superficially, the Lexus UX has a bit of an identity crisis, but it's actually an excellent entry-level prestige vehicle from an easy-to-recommend luxury brand with great reliability and fantastic customer support. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au, the place where Australian new car buyers save thousands off their next new cars. Hit me up on the website for that. But don't hit me up on the website for any guidance whatsoever about whether the UX is a hatch or an SUV. You'll have to make entirely your own determination on that, because I am just as in the dark as you. So, identity crisis, Lexus UX style. Here's a car with what I think you'd agree is a dynamic, distinctive, edgy exterior, taking the fight to the German Big Three, but rolling on the same fundamental underpinnings as a Toyota CHR, and with the heart and soul, or at least the engine and transmission, of a Toyota Corolla. Thankfully, motivation for UX derives from the larger of the two Corolla engines, the 2-litre with a CVT. And you can, of course, get a hybrid powertrain with this car, which uses, I think it's an Atkinson cycle version of this engine, together with the regenerative braking electric motor battery voodoo that Toyota leveraged so successfully for a couple of decades now to forge the Prius's reputation as the preeminent hybrid, the Coca-Cola of hybrids. And I guess if you're after an alternative powertrain for a car like this, for many city-based owners, the hybrid is always going to make much more sense than a diesel ever would. If you want the hybrid version, it's going to cost you about $3,500 extra, but bonus points, it's also going to go better. The hybrid is almost 1 second faster to 100 Ks, as well as saving you fuel around town. All-wheel drive is an option as well, but frankly, you just don't need that. Lexus positions the UX within its own stable as an SUV, but I think we should face objective facts here. It's really just paying homage to the inherent contemporary cool factor of SUV styling. Before you go telling yourself that you don't want one of those hulking, huge SUVs, you need to be aware that the UX is only about 14 centimetres longer than the Lexus CT, which is the smallest vehicle in the Lexus range. And it's just 6.5 centimetres taller than the diminutive CT. So I'd suggest your underground car park is going to survive the urban assault of the UX just fine. And of that 6.5, okay, just 2 centimetres, all right? 2 centimetres is the additional ground clearance compared with the diminutive CT. So definite urban crossover, whatever the hell that really means. I take it to mean a hatch with, stylistic aspirations. I certainly don't see the Simpson Desert quaking in its boots anytime soon over exactly how Big Red is going to cope this season, given the stampede from the city toward it of vehicles such as this. This one is the top-of-the-range F-Sport, powered by the same engine and transmission as the 2-litre Corolla. It's also front drive like the Corolla, and it'll knock you back mid to high 50s on the road in Australia. Lexus describes the performance of this car as quote-unquote exhilarating. And if they mean almost as quick as a big-engine Corolla, then yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. It's a little bit slower because it's 120 kilos heavier. There are several different drive modes too that adapt the engine and transmission to your preferences, so it's very easy to finesse the setup to Goldilocks in terms of your own personal driving preferences. On exhilarating, okay, it's definitely not slow. I mean, it keeps up, it does the job, but it falls ever so slightly short, in my view, of that outright borderline orgasmic state of exhilaration. To be fair though, I think we should allow them a little bit of poetic license in the marketing fluff. It's definitely not disappointing in the straight line dynamics domain. Objectively then, this car goes almost as well as a Corolla ZR, but it costs almost twice as much. So let us not forget, not even for one moment, that this vehicle does not compete with the Toyota Corolla. All I'm doing here is contextualizing the powertrain performance. For that price, you could get a fairly nice BMW X2, an Audi Q3, or a 3-point swastika GLA, and they'd all offer you turbo 2-litre petrol engines with substantially more grunt. I don't think there's really any objective doubt that Lexus is superior to the Germans when it comes to all-important things like reliability. Plus, you get another year's warranty, and the customer support from Lexus is renowned as being excellent. So there's that. And if you subscribe to my view on these things, then you'll know that 4-ringed expensive Skoda and Shuriken in a circle, well, there's a real red flag when it comes to buying those brands, because although they have significant cachet, reliability is actually pretty poor, and perhaps even more importantly, if you do have a problem, the risk that you will be treated in some second or even third-rate manner in deriving some resolution is way too high to countenance actually spending the big bucks on those brands. The BMW X2 is the best viable alternative to the UX if you're looking for a close competitor in the premium domain to evaluate before you jump one way or the other. The UX is quiet and composed, and the cabin feels sort of rock solid, and at least when you put it in Sport Plus mode, it's taut enough in the bends and the powertrain goes okay. So in short, what I'm trying to tell you is it's a pretty good drive overall. And I really like this CVT because unlike some lesser CVTs, this actually has a fixed first gear, which improves the takeoff response. It's kind of like just taking off in a conventional automatic when you get going off the mark, and then it seamlessly transitions into CVT mode properly. And that takes away a lot of that sort of quasi-clutch slip sensation that you get with lesser CVTs. The UX feels rock solid on the road, and the primary driving ergonomics are superb. Not a word I use all that often, but hey, it fits. They could have done a better job with some of these secondary switches, the non-core driving function switches. So there's room for improvement there, but I'd give that to them as a pass. The one thing that I cannot forgive though in the cabin is this appalling touchpad, and its purpose is to navigate this sort of cinematic center screen here for all of that infotainment and secondary stuff. Two problems with this: A, it's counterintuitive to use and a bit clunky, and B, it is flat out dangerous to have a crack at this while you are moving through space and time. And the obvious solution, and I don't know why it's not there, is a touchscreen. And the only impediment to retrofitting one now is look how far away the screen is. You have to sort of move into a not all that ergonomic position to get the job done if it were a touchscreen off the bat. So there would be a major architectural rejig of the cabin required to get a touchscreen sort of here at fingertip distance for a wide range of drivers. However, if it were my budget, I would sign off on that in a heartbeat, because it would make this vehicle so much more enjoyable to own and use on a daily basis. It's pretty hard, I think, not to be suitably impressed with the cargo capacity as well. See, at the moment, this vehicle is configured for maximum cargo space, and there are 6 massive bags in here, more than enough for a couple to take to an airport for an extended overseas trip. So that's impressive. But I think Lexus could have done a better job with cargo capacity generally if they just stuck with the one plan for spare tyres across the range. Because at the moment, UX is configured with 17-inch alloy rims in the base model and a space saver spare. And then as you step up, you go to 18s in the higher grades with run flats and no spare. So just under the floor here in this vehicle is a big fat void, and it's not all that useful because you can't get a really bulky thing in the back because the floor is in the way. So if they had eliminated the space saver in the base model, the floor could have gone lower. And the other thing is, when you fold the seats flat, the seats are actually lower than the cargo floor. And that tells me there's an inherent compromise in play in the back here for that space saver spare that only inflicts itself on the base model. You know, you have these events every so often and they just disturb your equilibrium. Well, I'm having one right now because I so wanted to detest these lights. I detested them when I saw them online for the first time, and I was like, when I picked the car up a week ago. But now, after a week of second guessing myself, I'm almost disappointed to tell you that I actually rather like them. They kind of remind me of Generation 1 Honda NSX, a car I could not believe the first time I got to drive it. Let me know what you think in the comments below, but am I losing my edge? Only time will tell. No word, of course, about UV stabilisation, and the relentless Australian sun is going to belt down hard on the top of them, don't you think? Just so you can make the right purchasing decision here, there are 3 model grades in the UX range. Luxury is the base spec, counterintuitively enough. I love it that the poverty pack in the range is called Luxury. It's actually very well equipped right off the bat, this car, so you are hardly buying a poverty pack when you buy Luxury, so there's that. Then, instead of having a mid-spec and a top spec in a kind of linear range, the range actually hits a fork in the road above Luxury, and you can either go down the Sports Luxury track or the F-Sport track. So there's 2 distinct streams into which you can swim. The F-Sport is not exactly the top of the range. It adds different features and specs on top of Luxury compared with Sports Luxury. So you should think carefully about what you want here. That would be my view anyway. F-Sport gets, say, 5 different drive modes and some pretty cool instrument cluster graphics to go with them, and you get a lateral G monitor. I don't know how much practical use you would put that to, but anyway, you get that. A Sports Luxury gets a 13-speaker stereo and heated and ventilated front seats. So, horses for courses, I'd suggest. Most expensive variant is the Sport Luxury Hybrid with all-wheel drive for about $67,000 on the road. That's if you fail to negotiate like you mean it with the dealer. The same thing basically in F-Sport trim is a few $100 cheaper notionally. The cheapest UX is the Luxury 2-litre non-hybrid 2-wheel drive variant, and you'll get that on the road under 50 grand. The hybrid adds $3,500, as we said, out there on the road, so I can justify that on the grounds of clean air and national energy security, but it's going to take an awfully long time to pay the $3,500 back in saved fuel. You know, spend $3,500 more to save a few cents a day on fuel. That's not really a sales pitch that could ever work on me. Cleaner air, national energy security, more performance too, you get that. I'm in on those grounds. The all-wheel drive system is about $5,000 extra, and to me that's just impossible to justify. It's not like this thing is a wheel-spinning fire breather, but I guess if you're planning on living in the snow every winter and you've got the cash, then okay. UX hits all the benchmarks for entry-level prestige, which is kind of a recent concept, and I think it's still figuring out what it really is. It's well equipped enough, the UX, it looks polished enough, it goes well enough, it's safe enough, it's quiet enough, it does all of those things. You are absolutely not a third-class citizen in a stripped-out special, paying through the neck just for that badge that you've always wanted. If you want that, I might suggest a base model Audi Q2. The UX's steering, it could do with a bit more positive self-centering, in eco-drive mode at least, if only to ram that exhilaration even further home. But it does feel very solid overall, that car. Apparently 1,000 engineers, each with PhDs in bank vault design, worked on the door closure touch and feel and the sound, that's important. This is what I heard. And I did also love the audio volume adjustment down there on the armrest. That's novel and it works quite well. I meant to mention that in the driving package actually, but head like a sieve. I must have prioritised not crashing during the time carefully allocated for that. Silly me. Row 2 is a bit squeezy for adults on long drive. You don't get all that much legroom in this vehicle in row 2, but it's okay for young kids. You get good dedicated air conditioning in the second row too, so there's that. It's not exactly Guantanamo. And this is huge in my view, okay? Not all luxury brands are the same in the context of the underlying sales strategy. When you go out there to buy, say, an Audi Q3, the 2.0 TFSI Quattro, which is second from the top of the range, the same price as the UX I drove for this review, the options list, it's a see it from space deal. It really is. And the clear intent at Audi, and not just in the Q3, right? It's to get you in the dealership with the expectation of spending, in this case, less than 60 grand, and then to upsell you into another $15,000 or $20,000 in options. It's just incredible. The Q3 options list includes a body kit and 19-inch alloys for $3.5 grand, LED headlamps for $2,000, a sunroof for $2,150, Daytona grey paint for $4 grand, an assistance package for $2,000, a side assist package for $2,150 to keep the regular assistance package company, I guess. Technic package for $3,000, leather for $1 grand, high beam assist $750, heated seats $600, and a partridge in a freaking pear tree. I actually think the partridge and the pear tree are both complimentary if you tick every box. That is $21,000 in options mentioned just there, and that's not the complete list for that vehicle. Thankfully, Lexus does not play this game, okay? So what you walk in expecting to pay is closer to what you actually pay. With this car, you'll pay $1,500 for premium paint, which is kind of standard in this segment. There's $5,600 for an F-Sport Enhancement Pack 2, which is a 13-speaker stereo, keyless card entry system thingo, pumped up parking assist display, a head-up display, and a big fat sunroof. And that's pretty much it, options-wise. And in my view, this is much closer to aligning buyer expectations with the reality of what is actually spent. And it is a strategy sure to burn far fewer customers in the long term. I mean, I can't believe it. Some people must leave the Audi dealer hoping a bystander managed to jot down the number of that bus that just ran them over. It's the same thing at Jaguar and Land Rover, frankly. It's a disgraceful upselling practice that some brands lunch off routinely, but thankfully not Lexus. It would be remiss not to address the elephant in the room too, and conduct another battle in my jihad on kooky grills. Is it a spindle, a V-belt, a cotton reel on steroids? You decide. Channeling my inner Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, the Lexus grille could be a modern art masterpiece. It's certainly distinctive. And following my outrageous success of restyling with the Triton GLS Ute recently, which you might remember, I'll put a link up there, I did wonder how the UX might fare with a somewhat more conventional hexagonal grille and whether this would be a step backwards or forwards. So I put that to the test. Yes, out there on location, much to the amusement of the local dude from Australia Post and his dog. The look I was going for here was Bugatti Veyron meets Peter Dinklage's coffin. I'm pretty sure this is the first time a coffin for the vertically challenged has ever inspired an automotive grille. So I ask you, which is superior? Mine? Lexus's? Mine? Lexus's or mine? Are they as good as me at grille design, or am I as crap as them? I ask you. Let me know what you think in the comments feed below. Eye of the beholder and all that, and you get to be the beholder. Yes. Jokes aside, okay, I actually quite like the Lexus grille, and not because of its deep aesthetic purity and intrinsic elegance. I like it because everyone has a view on it, even the Oz Post guy and his friggin' dog, and I was going to put them in the vlog, but the dog wouldn't sign the model release. Bitch. I also like that grille because it's bold in a sea of bland, right? It says, hey, this is us. If you don't like it, then just move along. It's not needy and desperate for affection, and I like that. Hashtag respect. And yeah, these grille designs are a complete piss take, and they're not meant to mean anything. But the interesting feedback that I experience, having done a couple now, is that they highlight for me starkly just how critical the grille is in setting up the overall visual presentation of the damn car, and how fundamentally you can change that with, I don't know, a roll of blue masking tape and some evil intentions or whatever. I'd actually love to be a fly on the wall during the 10,000 iterations of grilles that must go on behind the scenes before the final one gets the tick of approval and makes it into production. Anyway, let me know what you think. That's all I've got for you on the UX. So thank you sincerely for making it this far. And if you are still with me at this point, you well might want to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon thing to be alerted to future notifications from moi. It'll bring us closer together, I think you'll agree, and I'm sure that's what you really came here for. Am I right?